Hi, and welcome to the Why I Love podcast. This episode is all about making pizza.
Je suis une pizza.
Je suis une pizza
Avec du fromage.
avec du fromage,
Beaucoup de sauce.
beaucoup de sauce,
Des tomates. Des oignons, des champignons.
des oignons, des champignons,
Épices mélangées.
épices mélangées. Je suis une pizza prête à manger.
I'm not really sure when my obsession with pizza started. I've tried to look back and find a sort of single time where everything changed with me in pizza, but I don't think there is one really. It was just a sort of gradual change that happened as I got older. I think it all sort of started around uni really. When you're that kind of age when you're buying your own food and suddenly you can experiment with your food a little bit more. You're looking for ways to save money as well. I mean, that was a big reason for me with pizza. And also at uni you have your sort of own space in your own kitchen, and suddenly, you can make a big mess if you want, and you can do these things and you don't have to worry about like your mum or dad wanting to use the kitchen. And don't get me wrong, like at first with this, I wasn't going out and making pizzas from scratch. When I talk about experimenting, I think I was literally sort of buying Tesco value pizzas to save money and then just thinking they're so bland, I've got to do something to make it better. So I remember getting a value pizza that must have been for about 4 to 6 people, and it was mainly bread. There wasn't a lot to it. It was really dry and doughy, and I think I just cooked a couple of turkey drummers and just chopped them up and put them on as a topping. And it sounds really simple. I mean, it is really simple. I didn't do a lot of cooking. I could sort of make pasta and some sauce from a jar, but that was about it. The idea of kind of just chopping anything up and mixing it in without a recipe was new to me. And that pizza probably tasted really gross. I've definitely become more of a snob since then, and I don't think I'd eat it now, but it did start something. And from there I kind of went on to add different toppings, and then I got into the sort of thought of, well, can I make my own base and try and make it taste a bit nicer, and also, it'd just be a lot cheaper and just buy a load of flour and probably just a few other ingredients to get started with. I think I tried to make a couple of pizzas from scratch then, but it just never really worked out, so I went back to kind of just adding additions to pizzas, buying nicer bases and putting better toppings on, scrapping the turkey drummers and putting chicken on and more fresh food and things like that. And that was almost the end of the obsession, I think, with pizza, because I finished uni, I got a job, and I just kind of moved on and started eating different things, got really obsessed with eating stir fry and trying to be more healthy, and pizza just kind of fell by the wayside a bit. But then in my early 20s, I'm not sure quite why this happened, but my auntie had a bread maker, and I don't know if she already had one or she just didn't like it, or for some reason she ended up giving it to my parents. And when we got it, we were all sort of quite intrigued by it, and we all had a little go at trying to make bread in it and things. And the bread that comes out of bread makers is pretty awful. It's always really thick and cakey, and I don't think anyone in the house really even used it a second time. And it sat around for a while, and then at some point I sort of was reading the manual or something and realised that you could make pizza dough. So I thought I'd just give it a go and see how it turned out. And I think the first few were pretty disastrous, but I just kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was good fun. It was that thing that I'd always wanted to do, except now the consistency of the dough was there, so you could actually make a base out of it. When I tried to make my own, it always kind of went wrong, and it was way too sticky or too lumpy, or I didn't do the measurements right. And messing around with that bread maker just really got me interested again in pizza, and suddenly I was making a lot more pizza, and I was trying different toppings again and experimenting with things, and then I started trying to put different things in the dough itself to flavour it. I was at home, so my family always had loads of different flavours and different herbs and things lying around the house, so I could easily just sort of experiment and see what happened. At some point during all this, I got a job in Scotland and moved away, and my parents just let me take the bread maker because they never used it really anyway. And I think this shows how much I was into making pizzas by this point, because when I lived in Scotland I was quite into baking, and I was working on a big team of people, so I'd quite often bake treats and stuff and take them into work. And I was also really obsessed with making pizza, but the problem was the oven in our flat, it pretty much only grilled, so making anything was difficult. And making a pizza in it, I mean, a lot of it was almost eating raw dough at points, but I kept persevering with it, I kept trying new things, and I never quite got there with that oven, but the obsession continued. I mean, I'd make pizzas for friends, but it just kind of became my thing, I suppose, like my little speciality. People would note that I was the pizza person, and that, you know, people would come round and I could make them pizza. And this tradition of sharing pizza with friends is, I think, one of the big reasons why I love pizza, really, and have such fond memories of it. I've got a group of friends who I play a lot of Pro Evolution Soccer with, more so in the past when we all had a bit more time and didn't all have girlfriends and things, but we would stay up quite late at night and sometimes stay over at each other's houses and just play PES all night. And because it was just a treat that we all enjoyed, we'd all just quite often make a pizza together and make different types of pizzas, make loads of pizza. And then with another group of friends who I used to play a lot of board games with, and now we watch a lot of movies together, again we would eat a lot of pizza. I would make pizza for everybody, and it was just really good fun. Like, it's nice when people say they want you to make pizza because they enjoy it, and it's a good feeling, I guess. And I think the fact that people did enjoy eating it was one of the reasons that I did really get into making more pizza, and it really sort of inspired me to keep going with it and trying to improve it and trying to impress people more every time they came around. And some of that was just from sort of going online and looking up dough recipes and changing the way I made the pizza bases a little bit. And I also started making my own pizza dough by hand as well, rather than always using the bread maker. And that again came with a load of new challenges and loads of new stuff to learn, and in this quest to try and improve the pizza that I was making, I ended up spending hours on YouTube watching videos of people making pizza dough, reading articles all about dough and how to make the best base and what ingredients to use and different tips and tricks for making better pizza. And along with changing the actual ingredients itself, another thing that I got really into was sort of buying lots of little tools and interesting things to help with the pizza. Now, some of this started quite early on when I was first getting into making my own, and I think I bought, it was in a Hot UK Deals sale, and it was a Jamie Oliver pizza stone oven, and it was basically a fire pit with a pizza stone on top. And I was so excited about using this when I got it, and I remember thinking it was going to be absolutely brilliant, but when I actually used it, I quickly realised that it just didn't work. There's so many of these cheap pizza oven things out there, and they just don't work how they should do. These ones that are basically just fire pits or barbecues with a pizza stone on will never work like a pizza oven. So if you're ever thinking about getting into making pizzas, don't buy one of those. So that pizza oven was a bit of a disaster, and I ended up just getting rid of it, I think. But years later, when I moved into the house, as a moving in present, a group of my friends got me a big pizza oven. This isn't like a brick oven or anything, it's a separate kind of barbecue, but it's one of those, you've probably seen them on sale sometimes. They're like the big metal ones with the little chimney at the top, and this is a lot better. I've still never fully got it to work like a pizza oven should. I don't think you can without having like a proper brick pizza oven. I don't think these things will ever work as good as that, but it was really fun even when it didn't work. Just, you know, making a fire and heating the thing up to really high temperatures. It has a little gauge on it so you can see it's getting to like crazy heat that you couldn't get from an oven, and then sticking your pizza on the pizza stone and watching it crisp up. And I mean, most of the time it would just burn the pizza completely black because I didn't have a clue what I was doing with it. But even then, it was just so much fun, and, you know, playing with fire is always fun anyway. Playing with a big pizza oven and making these pizzas and just experimenting with it all is great, and I did really enjoy using it. I think the only problem is you'll spend an hour trying to light the thing, trying to heat it, get it to the right temperature, and then when you finally try and make a pizza, the heat drops so quickly that you can only really make one or two in it, and by that point you've burnt half of one. And it's one of those things that it's a really fun thing to do, but in reality trying to find the time to use it, just, it's not something I ever really get to do, unfortunately. But outside of the pizza ovens, there's loads of other gadgets that I've bought as well. One of my best ever buys was just sort of on spur of the moment really when I was in Lakeland. and it's sort of a big ceramic dish. I don't even know if it's really meant for pizza. They don't sell it anymore, sadly. I've tried to buy another since, and I cannot find one of these anywhere. But it's basically a ceramic dish that can be used to make really deep pan pizzas. It's got big deep edges. You put it in the oven before you start making the pizza. You've got to heat it up for about an hour. It's almost like a sort of portable pizza stone really, but it works really well and it makes a really nice base if you get the dough right. And then a year ago, for my birthday, my parents actually got me this thing called a pizza steel. So this is something that I'd had my eye on for years and was watching videos on YouTube of, but they only really sold it in America. And it's basically a pizza stone for your oven, but instead of it being made out of ceramic, it's made out of a big piece of sheet metal. And the good thing about this is supposedly it kind of dissipates heat better and does all these other things. I don't know, I couldn't honestly tell you if it does those, but unlike a pizza stone, you know, it's very strong, and the problem with pizza stones is they quite often just crack from getting too hot and then cooling down. So the pizza steel you can just leave in your oven and just heat all the time, and it's brilliant really. I use it a lot now and it does make a nice dough. The only problem with the pizza steel, and this is the same for using pizza stones or for anything really that isn't just a normal pizza tray, and that's the problem of trying to make pizza dough that isn't too dry but is also dry enough for you to actually shape it and pick it up afterwards and put it on the stone, and that's where other gadgets come in handy. I've got a sort of half-size metal pizza peel, but even with pizza peels it's really not that easy. Unless you coat the thing in flour, it's usually going to stick. I've tried different types of flours. I've tried rice flour, I've tried corn flour. There's loads of tricks out there on the internet. Honestly, after all these years, there is nothing better than a sheet of greaseproof paper. Just make the dough on the greaseproof paper, stick it straight onto your stone or your pizza steel, it doesn't matter, and just cook it straight onto the thing with the greaseproof paper on. The paper will come off really easy afterwards. Spray some oil on it or something before you make the dough, but it's so much easier, and actually it's kind of the best pizza I've made yet, I think, and I've only just started doing this recently, but I really feel like I've got the hang of it now. I can't recommend the greaseproof paper enough, but obviously without the pizza steel or a pizza stone, you're not really going to get that same type of base really. The reason why you need something like that is, I'm not going to get too technical on this podcast, but you need it to be as hot as possible really when you're making pizza, and most normal ovens can't get that hot, so the stone or the pizza steel will just keep that heat in, and that's why when you put the dough onto it, it'll really crisp it up and cook the outside really hard but leave the inside nice and soft. But I mean, you can make good pizza without all this stuff too. I only started buying all this stuff because I became so obsessed with making pizza, and it's a proper hobby for me now, I think. Like, I do this a few times a week, as well as the gadgets. I mean, I've got more as well. My mum got me some pizza boxes once for my birthday. I think she actually just went to a takeaway and asked if she could buy some of the boxes as a joke, but I loved it. I made pizzas every so often. If me and Katie are having like a really special night in or something, we'll have a little date night, I'll make us a pizza, put it in the box, and it just sort of adds to it. It's stupid, but this is what I mean when I say like people think I'm like a pizza person now. They're buying me pizza boxes as presents. But yeah, outside of those like tools and gadgets and things, you really, you don't need them. You don't need a bread maker. You can make a good pizza. It's much harder, but you can make a good pizza from scratch with just flour and oil and a bit of salt and sugar and some yeast. And as long as you've got like a basic pizza tray or even an oven tray, you can make one of these things. And when I started, they were shit, so don't worry about it. I mean, just go and try and make one. And I do recommend making them by hand, because I've got a new bread maker now and I still use that quite a lot just because it's easier and you can leave it running and go away and do other things. But actually making dough by hand is really cathartic, and I don't know, you can use it as a bit of a stress relief. You smack the dough and slam it down and sort of mould it and punch it, and it's just really relaxing. It's a great thing to do whilst listening to a podcast or listening to the radio, but it's also just a great thing to do in silence. Something to do whilst you want to have a think, or you want to plan something or think through something. And if you're having a bad day, you can smack the dough really hard. If you're having a good day, you can just sort of shape it and relax. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's no good for anyone else. Being really into video games and films, and it's a nice break. I think the same about baking as well. Like it's something to do that isn't looking at a screen, and it just gives me that time to sort of step back from everything. So obviously I love pizza, and hopefully this has sort of explained why. I know I've just rambled on quite a lot, but my goal in all this is really just to try and explain to people like why this is great, and hopefully maybe encourage some of you to actually go and try and make your own pizza. That's what I was really hoping would come from this, I think, is that someone might listen to it and think, do you know what, I did that when I was a kid, or I used to do that and haven't done it for ages, or maybe you've never done it, maybe you don't really bake, but it's so easy now. You know, YouTube can tell you everything you need to know. You don't need a lot of ingredients. You don't, like I say, you don't need all those tools and fancy things. So why not do it? That's what I'm really hoping from this. Hopefully you'll all go out there. I think I only have about 6 listeners, but if a few of you do it, it would really make my day. And if you do, please let me know. I have the podcast Twitter account. You could send me a photo of your pizza, that would be amazing, and that's at Wilpods, so that's WILPODS. And if you haven't followed me on there already, then why not give the podcast a follow? It's a great way to find out when shows are coming out, what they might be about, and usually just why there aren't shows because of various delays or things that have broken, etc. So yeah, if you do make a pizza, send me a message on Twitter, and that would be amazing.
That's right, one super giant pizza, plain, nothing on it, and I'd like that delivered as soon as possible.
Girls, your pizza's here.
Thank you. Okay guys, we've cleaned out the refrigerator. I think we're just about ready to build the perfect pizza. Give me pizza! P-I-Z-Z-A. Give me pizza! P-I-Z-Z-A. Now we're feeling kinda hungry. We got mega munchies. Time to make our pizza as big as some countries. How much pizza do you think we can chow? More than our parents would ever allow. We're gonna make a masterpiece of pizza. A work of art like the Mona Lisa. It's gotta be